you have to have a little bit of healthy detachment from your company. If the success or failure daily of your company is attached to your self-worth, you are going to be a very unhappy person.
That's Corey Scholibo, a serial founder who's now building Dayo, a different take on how we engage with social media.
Hi, my name is Corey Scholibo, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of an app called Dayo. And Dayo is an app that rewards people for healthy screen time. We reward users by the less you use, the more rewards you earn in a marketplace of goods and services. And we are adding a feature now where you will be able to actually pay your teens to stay off social media and screen time.
Oh, cool. That's new. So not quite a pivot, but just a new additional feature.
Yeah, so basically, we always knew that we wanted to have what's called a peer-to-peer or the ability to move cash through the system, and there isn't anything like that in the marketplace. So what we really did was we started with a user like yourself or myself and launched in April, and we had a pretty successful launch. We had about 5,000 downloads organically. But from that, we also learned that this need to actually accelerate the timeline for that product, that feature, was more urgent. And basically, I couldn't go through a single interview. I couldn't talk to a single person without the kids coming up, without the teens coming up. And so ultimately, the takeaway is people want to help themselves. They want to save the kids. So me, when you're building a startup, you know, this is an old adage, but you're either building a vitamin or a painkiller, hopefully both. And I felt like Dayo was this beautiful vitamin, but there was a real painkiller moment, this friction moment happening between parents and teens that no one was addressing. And it seemed like a really obvious addition to what we were doing, an extension of our mission, but then also it seemed like a really good business model as well.
That's awesome. And good job listening to user feedback. That's always nice to see founders incorporating that as quickly as possible. That's a great place to jump off to. Like, what was that initial kind of kernel of inspiration that began the Dayo journey? Like, what was so motivating that it caused you to pursue this startup?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of say that I need a better phrase for this, but I always say I'm looking for the thing behind the thing, right? Like I'm a mission-based entrepreneur. I only do missions, and they're all for profit. Like, don't get me wrong, I haven't built a nonprofit, but they have to have some sort of impact and culture or some sort of missional goal. Missional, that's a great word. Missional goal. It's missional. I like to make it.
Missional. Sure.
Well, you know, a goal. That's like a Trump administration thing. So, but I really can't get out of bed in the morning to sell a coconut water, and even no offense to coconut water, any of the things I do for money, it has to have some goals. So at first I was working in branding and marketing for big companies like Tiffany's, MAC Cosmetics, James Purse. And then I went to work for a magazine called The Advocate, which is the leading LGBT news magazine. And so I was in the LGBT fight basically in '08 during the Prop 8. And then I sort of realized as the green movement was taking off, like we weren't going to need rights if we didn't have a planet. And so I wanted to go work on that problem. And that helped me build Repurpose, which was an anti-plastic company. And then from there, I ended up in the menopause space, long story. But I realized if you have 50% of the population for about 50% of their life being benched, essentially, we're not really going to be able to save democracy either, or the climate, or anything we want to do. And now I'm utterly convinced that the root thing that I want to work on is the social media and intention economy, misinformation economy. And if we don't solve that, so to me, ultimately, I'm just sort of always aiming towards my highest and biggest contribution to society while still starting companies. And this, I can't think of anything bigger than this right now. The TAM is insane, but it's also just, I think it's the linchpin holding us together and holding us apart. And so that's where I came from. And my business partner, Patrick, had two girls and had this epiphany that he's like, what am I going to do? Right? Like, what are we building as a society here?
Yeah.
And he had the original kernel, the idea that we could actually just reward people for not using social media, and how would we do it? And we took a scope at the marketplace and saw that there were other marketplace models, rewards-based models for steps. Your health insurance will give you rewards if you go join a gym. Like, there's a very well-established business model here. So what we try to do, and our sort of interesting difference, I guess, is turn it into a non-action. You get rewarded for not doing a thing as opposed to
Yep.
doing a thing.
Yep. No, I love it. I think the society seemed to so rapidly adopt to well, social networks are what they are, and this is what we have to deal with, and had almost like seemed to have given up hope for the future. And it's so nice to see founders like yours building startups that are saying, no, we can think about this differently, or we can approach this differently. And there are opportunities to empower people to do that. So I'm glad you're doing the work, and I'm glad to hear you've been making great progress along those lines. Just to kind of put a finer point on it, who are some of the brands who have adopted your platform and decided to collaborate with you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is mostly, I think, going to be a lot of Portland people listening to this. So I can tell you one of our first early adopters was Powell's Books. I mean, I talked to Jeremy at the CMO at Powell's, and he totally got it, and his team totally got it. And we created a really unique offering with them where you can basically get 20% off your books. You can buy $100 worth of books for $80. You earn the 20% discount. And through what we're calling our Less Feed, More Read program, we built custom gift cards. We have custom content on our site that you can watch. And so it was a real 360 partnership because obviously we both have the same mission. People should be reading and spending less time on their feed. So that would be a more of a local one. And then we partnered with a lot of coffee companies. We partnered with a lot of tech companies. The brands that we have on the platform include, Yeti, Rumple, so people that are very outdoorsy, but we also brought in like Tom Ford and Chloe and some other fashion brands. We have books, we have kind of everything that you could think of categorically speaking. Casio watches just went on the platform, Golden Goose. In some cases, they are really direct 360 partnerships. We did a deal with this fashion company called Hammy's, a very retro inspired clothing company. We were very retro, like get before social media retro kind of concept. And we did our first ever Dayo dollar deal where you could get their product for only one physical dollar and then you could earn the rest of it. So sometimes there's a lot of stuff like that. Sometimes we're working through a distributor and we have to scale in order to integrate. And some cases, like we had a great conversation with Adidas. They came to us and wanted to work with us, but can't, like they're not on Shopify. Like I don't know how to integrate them. So we have scalable limitations as to what exactly we can do. So for Adidas, it makes more sense for me to buy through a distributor and then push it that way. So there's a lot of different ways we do it with levels like, okay, when we get to a certain level, then we can do something different.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So not your first time around. You've done companies before, and I always find that sometimes the best mentor for another startup founder is a peer more so than an expert. What's one piece of advice you would give to startup founders that you've learned throughout your journeys?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one for a while. The first thing I was going to say is try not to invest your own money if you can avoid it. I think people don't think about that much, but you should be aware of your own finances, and I would not get yourself over leveraged. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you not to, but like putting your house and things like that. This is a very long game we're playing here, and just be really careful of that. So the advice that I was really going to give was was a little bit of detachment. And this sounds a bit counterintuitive. It kind of goes into what I'm talking about, like putting up your house and stuff. There's so much of a sense in startup community that you're all in and you need to be all in and you need to be obsessed with your company and all of those things. But we overemphasize that to the extent, I think, of the human condition and mental states. And I think there's some pushback on that now, which is great. You have to have a little bit of healthy detachment from your company. If the success or failure daily of your company is attached to your self-worth, you are going to be a very unhappy person because it's going to go like this every single day. And I've done that for more than a decade, and it's not healthy. And so there's a way to be all in and also healthily detached. And I just want to encourage founders to kind of look at that line because it can get real dangerous. And I talk to founders who are at the wrapping things up, or maybe it didn't go well, and it's not good. People are in bad mental state. And I've been through situations where I didn't have ideal outcomes. And I always have to remember these people invested money because they're investors and they understand the risk, that things are beyond my control, things like that. You have to really detach yourself a little bit from it. I think we're just obsessed with you should live or die by your company.
Right.
And yes, but we're still just people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I always try and remind folks that, if you are not a healthy person, it's going to be difficult to build a healthy company. So like try and like stay as mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy as you can throughout this journey. And I think that detachment is an important part of it, to be sure. If you make it your entire identity, even something as successful as getting acquired or going public becomes difficult once that identity changes. So I love that feedback. That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe with that idea of detachment, I was going to ask this as like, what startup resource do you go to have as a go-to, but maybe what resource in general, like what do you use? What's something you kind of can't live without that enables you to either balance being a startup founder, or is there something that you use on a regular basis that helps you in your role as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I was gonna say, without this previous conversation is that for better or worse, as a small startup with limited funding, AI has been unfortunately, I mean, fortunately in our case, because we're not using it in certain ways, but you can just do so many things with it. I can move so much faster. I can do so much more. And I truly believe, while I'm not a huge AI, like I'm not obsessed with AI or I do think there's a bubble, etc. It's a tool, and if you're not using it right now, you're gonna fall behind. Like whether you like that opinion or not, that is what's happening. And if you're especially building a tech company, you're not going to be as efficient. It's not possible. It just is now the thing. So sort of accepting that. But going to our other conversation, you have to have other founders to talk to. And yeah, mentors are great. And sure, sometimes they've been through something. Yeah, when I have 20 years ago when I had a thing, but like founders that are currently going through it, founders that are currently going through it when it's going well, going through it when it's going badly, especially when it's going badly, talking to other people like, oh yeah, I had a shitty year and I still pulled it out. And like it's like a support group. And I think one of the issues that this post Zoom, post COVID world is that the founders are not together enough. I think one
Mhm.
of the issues with Portland is sort of finding each other and connecting. And I know everyone's trying to solve the Portland ecosystem, me included. I want to be a part of it. And I don't think it's just grabbing kombuchas together out and we don't know what it is. But
Right.
whenever I'm like, when someone's like comes to me, another founder, and says, I'm having this issue, I'm like, talk to this other person who's having that issue. You
Mhm.
will feel better, because I think we think that we're just completely on our own, and CEOs are so like put up on this level, and investors are coming to you, and it's very isolating. It can be very, very isolating, and you're supposed to
Yeah.
have all the answers. And how could you?
Right. Right. Exactly. Love that. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the most compelling part of that kind of engagement that I've seen in my experience is just founder to founder. Like it's incredibly rare for two founders to have exactly the same skill sets or exactly the same insights. So you're often kind of filling in gaps for one another, even if you both seem to be struggling. You're both approaching a problem in a very different way. So I love that advice, and kind of turning that around in terms of help that you or Dayo might need. How can we be most helpful?
I mean, ultimately, I think more of that communion with other founders and other people in the community would be great. Obviously, the number one issue I think facing startups in Portland is money. I think we could dance around it all we want, but that is still going to be the thing. And you could say the catch 22 is there aren't enough good companies to call the money, or there's not enough good companies because there isn't the money, and all that. So I think ultimately, and I don't know for whom you're the we is that you're speaking of, if it's Silicon Florist or the Portland startup community. We've got to connect people to capital. If we don't connect people to capital, we're not going to have the startup system that we want. And so I would say that's our number one issue. But then also just there's knowledge resources. I was part of an incubator. I'm still, I guess it's tailing out, in the EU, where they would have like these speakers, and sometimes they were selling their, like, let's say they were selling their product that will help you build AI-based UGC, which I'm not going to do, but you need to know about it, what's happening. And so they're making a presentation on their company, but also like I'm learning about the concept of how AI-based UGC works and scales. And then the next week it would be like the head of growth for Tinder. And okay, he's doing a speech and everything, but then he's also literally showing me his subscription flow. Like we A/B tested this at Tinder with millions of dollars. And this is how you build an onboarding flow to keep the maximum. I'm just going to take that. and put that into my, like, that is knowledge that could just be being handed down. I should be giving that knowledge to other people right now. If you're listening and you need to learn, like, it's a very simple, pre-tested, like, why would I reinvent the wheel? Tinder already proved it. So I think a lot of that hard skill is not getting handed down or passed around, whereas we're having like panels and talking about like, yeah, my M&A exit, and I can tell you what it was like for me, but it's completely unique. It's going to be
Right.
completely for you. So I think that's what I would like more of, is like, do you have a piece, an actual physical thing I could do today that you could hand me that would that would greatly improve my business? And it's sort of a nebulous conversation, but you're probably sitting on weird nuggets that you don't even know,
Yeah.
that save time. With retail, which I also do, I'm like, yeah, I can do your pricing strategy in 20 minutes and save you millions of dollars. Like, don't fuck up your pricing.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
And like, that is easy knowledge for me to hand to somebody. Oh, my phone is ringing. So anyway, I think it's more like real tangible exchange of information.
I do think that the really fine point there that I didn't want to lose is so often programming for founders seems to gravitate toward inspirational, aspirational. And what I hear you saying is, I don't need to be inspired or aspire. I need tactical things I can implement today that are going to improve my business.
I mean, you need both, but I guess it depends on the stage you're at. I definitely want to inspire new founders and let them know it's possible. But I rarely talk to founders who are like, I wish I just felt more inspired. They're like, no, I literally don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to connect these two dots. So, but that should be out there. I mean, we should definitely be inspiring the next generation of founders for sure.